Yo, 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 what's going on, everybody? Um, Looks like the guy's the only one here. The guy, I love you, buddy. Thanks for showing up. Um, yeah, maybe a few more people. There's Pots, my boy. New year, new vibes, let's go. That's what I'm saying. What's up, Max? How you doing? Hope you guys all had a good New Year. Or a good New Year's celebration, I should say. But yeah, man. Last year was tough. It's a brand new year. We gotta get the vibes starting off strong. Gonna take a look at everything. Futures are currently down. ES is down about 0.5%. Nasdaq futures down about 0.6%. Loyal fan, the rest are lurkers. Yeah, that's alright. I appreciate it though. We're gonna be doing the normal rundown. Crypto, then take a look at some other markets, and we'll take a look at the major indices, and then some mega caps, and could maybe do take requests at the end. We'll see. But yeah, I guess we'll get started. Bitcoin really hasn't done much. Maybe there'll be some sort of movement now that the new year is here, but ever since this sort of broke down, it really hasn't done much of anything. It's kind of just been in like a 4 or 5% range, which is like really not much for Bitcoin. So we will have to see. One thing though that I was talking about last week was this weekly candle and how it could be a bearish engulfing candle. It did confirm that. So shooting star candle, bearish engulfing candle, bearish divergence on the weekly. I still think that 14K is a logical place for it to head to next if it can't catch somewhat of a serious bounce and start moving higher. Even if you just kind of look at it on the weekly, even just drawing out like a rough trend line, just kind of looks like sort of like a bear flag. So we'll see. But yeah, I do think 14K is inevitable, but we'll have to see if that bearish engulfing candle plays out, get some follow through. Maybe they'll start heading lower. Moving on to Ethereum. Pretty much the same thing. It's really just been stuck in a range between like 1230 and like the higher 1100s. Bear flag broke down. Never got that back test. Maybe you could like redraw out this demand line here and just sort of watch something like that. Maybe it could be looked at as somewhat of a triangle here. Not too much has happened really. And then same thing on the weekly. I was talking about how this could also become a bearish engulfing candle, but it didn't. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. But it still is within this bearish pennant, and the bearish divergence is still there. But the thing is, and same thing for Bitcoin. Volume has really been dropping off, especially the past 3 weeks, and price has been holding up. And generally, at least from what I know, when volume drops and price holds, that is bullish. Similarly to how when price drops and volume drops, that also could be looked at as bullish. But it's the same thing on Bitcoin. It's really just been consolidating and the volume has been dropping off. So maybe those bear flags don't really play out too much and it kind of just chops around here for a while. We'll have to see. Bitcoin's new stablecoin? Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, crypto's been known for quite the volatile movements, and we really haven't gotten any of that, especially over the past, let's see, since like June. It was at 20K. Now it's at 16 compared to what we've seen. Like, it's a lot of percent, but for Bitcoin, it's really not too much. But then We are to some other markets. The 10-year. Still keeping an eye on this cup and handle. This is on the weekly time frame. Has triple hidden bullish divergence and is now flipping what was resistance into support and moving higher. So we'll see. This is like a pretty crazy pattern though. It's like a 5-year pattern. Keep an eye on that. And then on the daily, we've been talking about this bear flag or bull flag breakout, falling wedge, and I think 4% is the next key resistance above. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens this week. Move over to the dollar. Still within this channel. Really, since, let's see, when was this? This was on November 22nd. Since this huge sell-off, it broke under this 109 level. It's kind of just been chopping around and selling off a little bit. Does seem like gapped up a little bit. Yeah, not too much to really talk about here either. Then moving over to the VIX. Honestly, I think the story is more on the 4-hour. I was looking at this earlier, and it looks like there's some sort of triangle or sort of pennant that's been forming. And I took this supply line from October 12th, and it's got 3 touches on it. TA hasn't really been doing too much recently with the VIX movement. Hasn't been playing out too cleanly. We'll see. I'm definitely keeping an eye on it this week. And then this zone from like 24 to like 22 is like an area that I would be watching. If it could break over that, then I think there could definitely be some more upside, just because like it was support over here, then broke down, turned into resistance. Resistance a couple times over here, bunch of candle highs here. And this 23, 24 level was also support back in September, in the beginning of September. So that's the over 24. I think the VIX could move a lot higher. We'll have to see. Then on the weekly, really hasn't done too much. Kind of just chopping around still. But this at this lower support zone, like of this whole range. So who knows? We'll have to see what happens with SPY. But yeah, I'm definitely just because it's sitting near this lower support zone where it's bounced multiple times. I'm just being a little bit cautious, and yeah, we'll have to see how this new year affects the VIX. It's really just been consolidating in between like the lower 30s and the lower 20s. So we'll see if that keeps happening. Maybe a trend change will happen and it sort of breaks up back towards the upper 30s maybe, or if it breaks below like this $18-19 level, then I think that could be really good for the market. Because every time we've came down to that level, it seemed to hold it. This is the 3rd time back in November that it held that level. So I think if that level breaks, then we could see some more upside in the market, but we'll have to see till that happens. When ticker requests come around, take a look at BAC, weekly and monthly. Okay, got you. What's up, Reese in the chat? Yeah, so let's take a look at SPY. Because I know I saw the guy earlier said let the bull market commence. I would love that. I really would. So, broke down from this channel, sold off a little bit, and it really just been consolidating in between like the mid to upper 370s to like 385-ish. Bullish divergence is close to confirming on the daily. On Friday, we got a pretty nice hammer candle, which is something to keep in mind on higher volume too. Move over to the 4-hour. Actually, no, the 1 hour. Sorry. I was talking about this wedge. I think it was like last Wednesday or something. Actually, let's see. Yeah, last Wednesday, because it literally closed right here. And then we got that move on Thursday. We got the breakout. We gapped up. I think there's some news in pre-market that helped that out. Kind of just rolled back over, gap down on Friday, and then kind of just chopped around. But it was really strong close into Friday. And I know I said futures are down currently, but depending on how we open, this could be a third higher low in a row with the wedge breakout, with now a new gap. Let's see, around a little over 383, and then we have another one around 385, and then a higher one over 388, and then actually even one more around 398. So personally, I think that we could head up towards these gap fills as long as like this 380, 378 zone is held as support. Depending on how we open. I know it's a new year, so literally anything could happen, but that's what I'll be looking for. See if because especially on Friday of not last week, the previous week, you could just see from this gap down, this 383 or so level was pretty big resistance, and we really just could never get that push up to fill the gap. So now maybe with the potentially third higher low here, maybe we get some momentum with some New Year optimism, head up towards some of the gaps. This 390, lower 380s or higher 380s level could be flipped into resistance just because it was some pretty big support multiple times before it broke down and then we gap down again. So I think that would make a lot of sense if we do move up, maybe fill like these two gaps, test the higher 380s, maybe flip that into resistance. But we'll have to see with that. And then on the 30 minute, I was taking a look at this little triangle here. Symmetrical triangle. Had a gap down here, but I still like this demand line just because of these other two touches we had. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm watching tomorrow. Kind of biased a little bit into the week, thinking that we could head up, especially when we go and look at the Qs. I'll talk about the 1 hour in a second, but on the daily, I was talking about this bear flag breakdown sort of channel, whatever you want to call it. I actually forgot to mention this that last time I streamed, but this last Wednesday was the lowest close of the year for the QQQ. Back in November on November 3rd, we closed at 260.49, and then on the 28th we closed at 260.10. So I was pretty surprised about that. And especially with this huge green candle over here, it just kind of seemed like the lows were a lot lower, at least for the close. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting that the 28th was actually the lowest close of the year. And then also on Friday we closed with a pin bar, hidden bullish divergences there on the daily for the maybe we flip this or retest this supply or demand line. I know I was talking about this 270 level, which was lows back in June as well. So there's definitely some big resistance around there. I'll be watching that level and then potentially flipping this demand into supply. But the bullish divergence is there too, so kind of there's always two sides to each story. So just kind of trying to share some variables. Then yeah, the 1 hour. So I was talking about this wedge as well, and then with Friday's price action, sort of is looking like there's inverse head and shoulders forming here, especially just because these two lows kind of line up really nicely. Really strong close on Friday. Have the wedge breakout. There's a gap to fill around 272. Let's see, 266.44. Yeah, so we actually didn't quite fill this gap on Friday from the gap down that we had on Friday, but I'm really looking towards these upper gaps on SPY and Qs. I think that we could head up towards them, maybe fill them, flip those areas in resistance. I think that would make some technical sense at least. Who knows what kind of news and whatnot will come out, but that's kind of what I'm looking for. Short-term bounce, see how we react to certain levels like 270 on Qs, and then also the upper 380s on SPY. See if we flip those into resistance. But then on the other side, the bullish divergence is there, so maybe that gets more follow through when we break up. Then it'll be a different story. But yeah, we'll see what happens when we get there. And Russell, so I can delete this. Catching a bounce off this 170 level. Definitely had rising volume on Thursday and Friday. This candle was actually, the Russell was actually down 0.25% on Friday. Um, Even though it's green, it gapped down a little bit. It'll be a nice bounce up from the lows for sure. And then yeah, same thing. Sort of caught a nice breakout on Friday or on Thursday, and then has kind of just been holding. But this could be another higher low for the Russell, and then this 174 level I think is really important. Basically like right where it closed at. Just because you can see candle highs, candle low here. It was support back in November, early November on the 3rd and the 9th. So I think if you break over that level, there's a gap to fill around 175. Another gap to fill even higher around 179. So, whoops. I don't know. You can see a lot of these patterns look the same. There's gaps to fill above on a lot of the bigger indices. Some of the stocks that really move the indices as well have the gaps to fill to the upside too. So, thinking maybe with some optimism into the new year, maybe get some new money flowing in, get a nice little bounce to start it off. The ARC, I still don't like it. As long as it's below 33, I'm not a fan. It's got to reclaim this level. Hidden bearish divergence is almost confirmed on the weekly. This is the first weekly green candle close in 3 weeks, but it really wasn't much of anything. It wasn't even up 1% that it closed up. And I think I had something on the 1 hour for this. Yeah, I don't really have too many levels here, but similar to the other indices, it did get the wedge breakout. And with the gap ups and your wedge breakouts, it's kind of tough to see if you'll get follow through or you'll get the gap fills. And I know the Champ talks about this a lot. With these wedge breakouts, they kind of sometimes can turn into what looks like some sort of a bear flag. Maybe something like that. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. And I was kind of just being aware of that on SPY as well. You just go like something like this. I know that trend line isn't really perfect, but I don't know. If we maybe do fill the gap, find some resistance here, maybe we end up breaking down. But personally, I think that we could see a bounce into the end of the year. And then I know that a lot of people like to look at XLE, so I wanted to take a look at that tonight. Testing a breakout of this bull flag kind of downsloping channel, but it is heading right into some resistance. This sort of $87, $88 level is definitely, well, this whole zone really. Just, there's resistance above, some bearish divergence, and the other main thing I noticed was that volume has been dropping on this rise. Maybe if we go down to lower time frames, a little bit lower time frames. Maybe some sort of a lower time frame bear flag. So maybe if this does play out, this bearish divergence also plays out. Maybe you don't break out of that daily flag right away. Maybe you get one more pullback and maybe put in like a higher low here because you put in 2 lows over here. Something like that, and then maybe if that plays out, maybe put in another higher low and then get a breakout. Especially with the lowering volume, that's kind of why I'm a bit skeptical about this. We'll have to see. Frank the Tank, what's going on? There's not too much else in the chat. Okay. So yeah, let's take a look at Apple. Nice close on Friday. It's reclaiming this 129 level that was lows back in June, which is a good sign. I'm not too sure what this green line is, but yeah, I think holding over that is really important. This big red day sell off on Wednesday was kind of a fake out. We got a gap up and held pretty nicely on Thursday and Friday. Nice strong hammer candle on Apple as well. And then Yeah, similar to the SPY and the Qs. This 1 hour breakout. Apple has multiple gaps to fill to the upside, so it's just something to keep an eye on around 142 and 135. So if it can clear over this like 131 level, I think that it could continue higher. But then again, like I was saying, if it really can't get that much of a bounce, sort of looks like somewhat of like a bearish pennant, and then there's also bearish divergence forming on the 1 hour. So yeah, I think getting over 131 would be important for Apple. Then Microsoft reclaiming this 238 level, which I talked about was really important. It broke it for a little while. Didn't end up filling the gap down here, which I thought might have happened if it did break this. But yeah, another hammer candle on the daily. Rising volume as well on the price rising, so that's nice to see. And then back to the 1 hour. I probably sound like a broken record, but it's important to keep an eye on all of these things that seem to be lining up. Has a gap around 255, which is definitely ways away, but there's another gap around 244. So if it can continue higher, definitely some resistance around 241, like lower 241s. But if it can get over that, then I think this gap fill around just under 244 is definitely possible. Yeah. Now we kind of line up with this $245 level, which I think is the next resistance above major, at least on the daily. Let's see, Nvidia. Interesting. I forget the name of it, but this is an inverted hammer at the bottom of a downtrend, at least for now, the bottom of it. And I forget what it's called on the bottom, but at the top it's like an abandoned baby. Maybe somebody knows in the chat. I forget exactly what it's called. Because I think an abandoned baby is at the top at the top of a trend, but I might be completely wrong about that. But yeah, I think 151, 150-ish could be the next resistance above. But then looking at the 1 hour, which this is quite a big wedge, with multiple gaps to fill above. But then again, could be looked at as a bear flag. So just a bit skeptical, and we'll have to see how we start the new year out. I really hope that we can get the vibes up and the market can turn around here. But we'll have to see. Realistically, nothing really changes just by the year going up by one number. So we do need to keep that in mind. But yeah, hidden bearish divergence here too. And then AMD. See this chart, even though it broke down from this demand line that I was kind of watching, as of right now, this is another higher low. Hidden bullish divergence. Volume has been dropping this entire time that it's been selling off. And if we go over to the 1 hour, it has a nice wedge breakout. And honestly, actually maybe not. But yeah, I sound so repetitive, I know, but it's important to keep an eye when all these things seem to be lining up. And we'll have to see how we open, just because that can change a lot of things. But gap to fill above around 67. There is also a gap to fill below. But really nice daily candle. Really nice daily candle across the market, honestly, on Friday. Even though normally it's like lower volume, that push into close was really strong. Yeah, and then let's see. Oh, Tesla. Yes, I wanted to talk about Tesla. Okay, so I was talking about this really long channel that it's kind of just been selling around in, and I was saying maybe it'll catch a bounce around this lower demand line part, which it did. Wow, it's pretty crazy how high this volume was. That's something you always need to keep an eye on. Like Tesla was selling off pretty aggressively, and you can just see the entire time it was doing that, volume was rising. So that just gives you more confirmation that the trend is definitely down, at least for the moment. But it is catching a bounce off this sort of demand line. It's a little messy, but you get the idea. So maybe I'll continue higher, but there's a gap to fill around 115 below. Let me see what these RSI is also catching a bit of a bounce. Let's see on the daily, is it still oversold? Yeah, it's at 20, just under 30 on the daily. But then on the weekly, this is what's really interesting. I can delete this because that head and shoulders definitely played out. That's a really nice candle on the weekly, and had pretty high volume. Nice pin bar candle. It's green, but it was actually up 3 cents on the week. But just since it was down at 108 at the lows and then closed all the way up at 123, I think is a good sign. Need more follow through to get more confirmation, but it's a good start. So we'll have to see what happens there. And yeah, futures are catching a bit of a bounce, so that's nice to see. That's pretty much all I really wanted to talk about. This is kind of a quicker stream just to get back into it. I know everybody had a long break. A lot of people took time off. Yeah, if anybody has any tech requests or just any comments about what they think might happen themselves, could definitely drop it. Check out the links in the description. Join the Discord. My Twitter's down there as well. Definitely subscribe. I think we're getting closer to 100 subs, so that'd be pretty cool. And then if you didn't see, Champ made an announcement about it, but it's in the Discord. And we are starting a podcast, which I'm definitely pretty excited about. It's called Trading Addicts. Obviously, we're not actually addicted to trading, but it's just a cool name that we thought was a good idea to name it that. But new episode will be coming out this weekend. I've tweeted about it a few times, so has he. So definitely go check that Twitter out. We'll be dropping a new episode every week. So that'll be really cool. And there's also a YouTube channel for that. I should probably, I'll put that in the description for the next time. But yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, I was talking earlier about this 383 or so level. You could just see how many highs just kept rejecting off it. And then Champ was talking about this too on Thursday. We broke over it and tried to hold that support, and then Friday we just gapped down below. So we'll have to see. I think breaking over this level can bring some more upside. And I hope that this new year can bring a lot more positivity. I know a lot of people had a difficult time, but you need to take all the things that you learned this year and bring into this year. I'm really excited to see what we can do. Let's see, SQ. Oh yeah, that's right. I think is that Bank of America? Okay, let me clear this out. I'm just looking at the daily time frame, just you guys can see, but just to remind you. It's definitely okay. Why is my mouse not working? Okay. Actually, I want to look at this on the 4 hour. sort of just seems like it's in like a channel for right now. Just kind of going sideways. Couple gaps to fill to the upside. Holding these lows around 58.50 would be important. Actually, take these highs. You can get somewhat of a supply line there. So maybe look at it as something like this. I know these two candles are kind of wicking over, but it kind of gapped up and then came right back down. Maybe something like that. MACD is close to going back to green. RSI is pretty neutral at 50 at the moment. Bank of America. What did you say before? Take a look at the weekly and monthly. Possibly a massive cup and handle. Let's see. Okay. I think I kind of see what you're talking about. Sort of like that. Maybe a little bit. I think that the handle could use more work, unless you looked at it as like some sort of a channel maybe that's forming on the weekly and have it be a flag. That's interesting though. Maybe you could say that it broke out of this channel. I'm just trying to put in like a higher low here. There's hidden bullish divergence that's there, but hasn't really done too much yet. Go back to like 2009. Yeah. No, I see what you're talking about. And honestly, this trend line is just like really been pretty strong. If you just go like that, it's even better. So maybe that's something I'd keep an eye on too. If it can't really bounce right here. This trend line's been holding since basically the financial crisis. PLTR, the classic. Yeah, let me see. I don't know, did I look at this last week or something? It's like a pretty nice wedge. It looks like it's retesting the lows from back in May, and it's found it as resistance multiple times. It wicked off it here, closed at it, and then gapped down, wicked off it again. So I think getting back over 650 would be important. MACD's close to going back to green. Let's see on the weekly. It's not much of a demand line, but I feel like the supply line's pretty clear. So I watch something like that, but there's bearish divergence, so keep an eye on that. Yeah, now that I drew that on the weekly, this I think it's a little bit easier to see on the daily. I mean, yeah, if it can like reclaim this sort of zone, just because it was like support multiple times and then it broke down from that, if it can get back over like a little over $7, maybe like $7, you you could reclaim that and then maybe break out and then get a back test and keep holding that zone of support and then move higher. Something to look at. PD, daily cup and handle, more of an ascending triangle. Let's see. What's up, Maximo? Hope you're doing well. Let's see. I see the cup and handle part. If this is what you're talking about. I think that the handle could use a little bit more data. Maybe it's something like that. Yeah, maybe like continue chopping around and then get that breakout. I definitely see what you're talking about. And then see some levels. I think this high is important. You can see this high is over here. Yeah, and actually, all of these highs from inside of the candle, at least starting back in like September, like this high, these highs, this candle high, it flipped into support and now it's bouncing up. So maybe keep an eye on that. Also, volume has been dropping while it's been consolidating. So if you do get that breakout, maybe you want to look for a back test. But even if you don't get a back test, you want to see that volume rise for sure. That's a really bad candle, but keep an eye on that. Consolidating at the handle, yeah, 100%, definitely. Yeah, so if you do get that breakout, you definitely want to see volume rise just because it has been consolidating. So then you get that double confirmation with price and with volume. Yeah, interesting chart. What is this? Pager duty? I have no idea what that is. But yeah, market's back on tomorrow. Everybody, I want you all, if you don't have a rule sheet or some sort of rule set or anything like that that you follow, I want you to write one. And if you do have one, I want you to add things, new things to it, sort of that you want to focus on and follow this year. Because I know I still have a lot of things that I need to work on, and I added that to my rules list. Actually, let's see in the chat if you guys have like one specific thing that you know you struggle a lot with and you want to work on it. Only if you want to. You don't have to drop it down. But yeah, if you could pick one thing that you could improve on for this year that you really struggled with last year or you've been struggling with for a while, what would that be? Alright, well that's okay. But yeah, VPA, volume profile analysis. Is that the guy? Is that the stuff that you talked to Cheta a lot about, like stopping volume and all those sorts of things? Not like volume shelves. Not trading the first 30 minutes? Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah, it is 5 man? Okay. Yeah, I seen you guys talking about that a lot. Maybe I'll look into that too. Honestly, you should check out the volume profile as well. Absolutely love it. Been using it more often. It's definitely a lot easier, at least for me, to see on on lower time frames. But yeah, maybe we'll save that for another stream. I could talk about that more. Yeah, I think that'll do it. I appreciate you guys coming out. No, it's kind of short notice, but yeah. Be sure to hit the like button. Oh, we got 5 likes. Okay, that's perfect. I love that. Yeah, check out the links in the description. You guys probably already have them all done and followed and everything, but I will see you guys tomorrow in the Discord. Best of luck with your day, and have a good rest of your night.